So, welcome to the Future of Wellbeing podcast. This is the first one, and I'm Rob Stevenson, your host. And it's quite apt for the first Future of Wellbeing podcast that we've got Deloitte's Future of Wellbeing leader, Ryan Hopkins. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Mate, I'm delighted to be chatting to you in a kind of more relaxed setting. The last time we did something like this, we were in Lake Como at about 4 degrees centigrade, weren't we?
Yeah, the well of wellness. We were in the water for like 2 minutes before we were like, yeah, let's do record. And I'm like dying. Rob's better in the cold than me. And he's like, all right, we good to go? And I was like, yes. I'm slightly warmer and more ready for this today.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Well, so future of well-being, and the reason I've come up with this as the next series for my podcast is I feel that we're heading to a watershed moment, and we're going to talk about that a lot today, I'm sure, where well-being is really going to take on much more momentum, particularly at the senior leadership and the board level. There's a lot of data coming out. A lot of stars are aligning, I think, to really take well-being in the workplace where it needs to be. So I'm delighted to chat to you about it, Ryan. And you are the future wellbeing at Deloitte. You're also the host of the Audacious Goals Club, and you have this mission of engaging 1 billion people in the betterment of well-being. And I think you're somewhere along that journey now. How many people have you engaged so far in your posts?
It's about 5 and a bit million now. Tracking all the time, and some go much better than others, but just staying consistent. Every single work day, I'm putting something up.
Yeah, brilliant. So getting 1 billion people to think differently about well-being, which is a really well, it's an audacious goal, isn't it? But it's I think a good goal. And how did you come up with that? Why 1 billion people?
I was just thinking about it, and I've always been fairly audacious, and I was made redundant twice after leaving Deloitte the first time before
Mm.
I come back round to this role. And each time I was like, no, I'm aiming up, I'm shooting upwards. And I felt that by being audacious, I've really like stepped forwards and made some huge changes in my life. And I was like, well, if this is something I want to do, I need to engage people on this journey and make it something insane. Like what I was like, 1 million is a lot. And I was like, okay, but I've done that. Just 1 billion. Like it sounds amazing. And it's a large swath of the planet. And the level of change that I want to make is a global change. And I think this is something that we can put out there. It's our North Star and it's something that we can move towards. So everything I do is almost like feeding into that upwards goal. So you got the Audacious Goals Club, like the toilet break videos that I do, the work with Deloitte, speaking, everything else. And I keep tracking, and who knows, it's speeding up the engagement, and we'll see. We will get there. It's just when I might be like 87 or however old Richard Layard is. I'll be speaking at the World Happiness Summit in 2069, and I'll just be there, and they'll roll me out, and they'll be like, Ryan has just hit 1 billion, and people will be like, I've no idea who he is, but good on him.
Well, yeah, and for me, I think we're approaching a tipping point, as I say, where I think the momentum of people engaging with well-being and workplace engaging with well-being will really start to ramp up. But we're going to get into that. I'm keen to hear a little bit more about why you're so passionate about this and your backstory as well. But first of all, let's kind of do a form score check-in. And you're aware of form score. So FormScore is kind of my startup, and this is a means of tracking how we're doing in terms of our well-being, our productivity, our effectiveness, and also how committed we are to our workplaces. So, using this simple concept of a score out of 10, with FormScore being a kind of amalgamation of all of those three: your wellness, your how effective you're feeling, and how ready to go are you. What would be your score out of 10 today, Ryan?
Total for all three.
Yeah. Just your gut feel as to kind of your overall performance readiness.
7.
7. Yeah, I think I'm about the same today. Yeah, and then think about kind of the factors, personal and work, that are driving that for you. What are the key things that are keeping you at a 7 today?
So what's pulling me up is the energy and the goal, and I just feel like you, and I'm like everything is changing, and it feels like what I'm doing is in its ascendancy, and I'm doing a TEDx talk next month, and I've got some really exciting news to tell other people soon about something else, and my work is taking off, and I love it. So that is energizing me, and that's pulling me upwards. But then at the same time, because everything is really moving in a strong direction, it requires a lot of my time.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm putting in a little bit too much at the moment. And I need to address that before I suffer on the back end. So that's kind of the work life. Personal life, I'd say things were pretty good it's a relatively new relationship.
Mm.
You met Becky, and that's going really, really well. Loving that. So that's lifting me up as well. So yeah, that's why I'm at 7.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for sharing. I'm very similar. I'm always very strongly motivated by the mission. I get a lot of energy for that. So my commitment to the mission is always high. That's always probably a 10 out of 10. But you're right. When you are so purpose driven, that can cause you to put a bit too much in, be a bit too focused on it, and that can then neglect other areas of well-being. And I often find that I can be very focused, and then my relationships can be compromised a little bit because I'm pushing too much into work and the mission that I do. For me, on the well-being side, still balancing the challenges of long COVID, but actually feeling a little bit more optimistic about some of the new research coming out and some of the dietary stuff that we can do to potentially get through the long COVID challenges.
That'd be interesting to see. I'd love for you to share some of that stuff. I'd really love to read.
Yeah, I definitely will. I've just been reading it, because the latest thinking on long COVID is actually the way to solve it is by kind of re-establishing the gut biome and putting the proper bacteria back into the gut, because the remnants of coronavirus, even in long COVID, can like stay in the gut wall. So you've got to kind of eradicate the virus and then kind of build up the good bacteria again, and lots of supplements you need to take. So
I know we're digressing, but I've been trying to do that this year. I've been doing like kombucha every day,
yeah,
and taking Athletic Greens. I'm not
yeah.
affiliated with them, but they say they're the best. So I'm like giving that a go. We'll see in a few months if I'm some superhero and I'm able to keep floating around onwards to 1 billion. And hopefully this will power me to get there.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point, right? Because to power you on the mission that you've set yourself, you've got to look after the basics. You've got to
just crap coffee.
Not just crap coffee. And I know you've kind of been sober for 100 days. Congratulations. I think managing alcohol is another big part of how we can recover properly, sleep better, and have the energy we need to thrive, survive, and do what we need to do, right?
Exactly.
So, form scores, we're both on 7. What would it take for you to be an 8? What do you need to do to get to an 8?
It's really difficult. So I don't think I would change anything because I'm working with so much like passion like you, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I'm just ready. I'm just ready for it. And I understand it's going to take more from me for the time being. But ideally, I would love it if I wasn't working quite as long and doing stuff all the time, because it feels like my brain is always on that at the moment. I'm writing on the weekends and preparing content and doing stuff. So I need to find time to do that in my day to day on top of this full-time job and everything else, but we'll work that out.
Yeah. So what does Ryan Hopkins do to take yourself away from that? What is the mindful stuff in your life that gives you a break from all of the thinking about the mission, the writing, the content?
So I found out relatively recently that I've got ADHD, and that won't surprise anyone that knows me. But so I need to be moving, and that really helps me with switching off. So it sounds silly, but I never walked pre-pandemic. Like it wasn't a thing. And then we had our 1 walk a day, and that was like the highlight of everyone's day, wasn't it? And I was like, oh, but I've kept that, and it's my sacred time. It's my time that I get out, I give my nana a quick call. Hey, Red, how you getting on? Check in with her. And that for me is very restorative. And then most mornings I'm in the gym, and when I'm moving around, that helps my brain switch off as well. So it's more to do with movement, and then I'll try and take a bit of time in the evening to read away from screens. Otherwise, I'm literally on screens every hour of the day, and that is not good for us.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. You're kind of habit stacking there, aren't you? Kind of moving and calling a loved one. So you've got social connection, you've got movement, you've got being outside, you've got mindfulness, you've got a lot of stuff going on there, which is a nice way.
I love a bit of habit stacking. BJ Fogg, it's class.
Yeah. Good for you. For me, it's music and DJing, right? and I know you've got a musical selection we're going to talk about a bit later, but for me, when I'm like playing music, all I'm thinking about is the music itself, the technical stuff of the DJing, and that's my version of mindfulness. I'm not thinking about work, I'm not thinking about family, I'm not thinking about stress. It's just a complete, happy place and release from life.
When you say mindfulness, you mean it's almost like akin to a state of flow, isn't it? They're
Mm.
almost like one and the same thing, the way you're talking about it.
Yeah, so mindfulness, for me, is being very present in whatever you're
Mm,
doing. I think that's the definition of it. Now, a lot of people will attain that through meditation and headspace and things like that, which is great. But I think you can be mindful in many activities. Gardening is another good
definitely.
example. Someone told me that I haven't achieved this yet, Ryan, but someone told me that you can be, reach a state of mindfulness in the washing up. You know,
I've
um,
read this as well. But yeah, I'm not quite there yet either. I'm like
no, I mean,
one eye over, like watching Family Guy or something like while I'm like yeah.
yeah. So kind of, I'm not as enlightened as that yet, but so for me, in that moment, and then flow state, I think comes from, kind of you then allowing that performance to come around you. A lot of athletes will, reach flow state where it all becomes very easy
Mm,
because you're in the groove, you're in the mindset, and you can get that with kind of work as well, right? Where you're the creative ideas are flowing, but I think you've got to set yourself up to get into flow state, which is removing distraction, having a sense of play around what you do as well, and then it can come. But it's very difficult to force in the
you'll like
work
this.
environment.
I know we're digressing completely,
Yeah,
but this is interesting. I posted this morning actually. Dr. Gloria Mark was on Greg McKeown's podcast, which I would recommend.
yeah.
The author of Minimalism and Essentialism, um, and they were speaking about distraction. How Microsoft did a big piece of work recently to find out how long the average attention span is, and they found out it's like 80 seconds.
Yeah.
Do you think that's longer or shorter than a goldfish?
It's I think a goldfish should beat that.
Yeah, it does. A goldfish is like 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So published one says you've literally a shorter attention span than a goldfish, and it's no wonder the average American checks their phone like 400 times a day, like just
Yeah.
touching it. So it's not. It takes about 28 minutes to get into focus.
Yeah.
So we're never actually focusing. So we're never able to get in that state like when you're DJing. So I think we need to protect that time
Yeah.
as much
Well,
as we can.
well, that's right. But and again, your colleague and awesome campaigner in the US, Jen Fisher, talks a lot about distractions in the workplace, and kind of, if you think of like notifications, so many people will have alerts, notifications, pop-ups for email, for messages,
Mhm.
for WhatsApps, whatever it is. You've got all these channels of information coming at you, and so you can't concentrate. You can't get into flow state. I mean, one holiday I turned off all notifications and turned everything off, and then when I returned to work, I didn't turn them back on. So I have
Are
no
you are
note.
you still
I'm
notificationless?
notification free, right?
Yeah, me
So
too.
so, but what that means, doesn't it, is that you choose when to engage with these channels of communication. They don't choose to engage with you. So I have to make the joke of, an email notification is akin to, the postman turning up at your house, banging on the door. When you open the door, charging through to your living room, opening the letter and shouting it at you. That's
Yeah.
what.
I like that one. I have one like good one. It's basically someone else's to-do list that they're just putting in front of you, right? And then it goes right to the top of your list. So forget what you're doing, Rob. It don't
Yeah.
matter. It's not important. I need something, so my thing's going to the top of the list.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Somebody else's
Yeah.
to-do list. So we're about halfway through, and we've talked about nothing about the future of well-being, and we could go on like this, which is good. But good top tip for everyone there is turn off your notifications, choose when to engage. So look, before we get into the future, I want to learn a bit about you. And I was reading about your forthcoming TEDx, and reading the profile that you'd created for them. And I'm just going to repeat a little bit of that, if I may.
Of course.
And you said when I was 20, I was in a wheelchair for a year after a rugby accident. I lost my job as an electrician, had no qualifications, prospects, was overweight, in debt, and on antidepressants. I hated myself and I wanted to end my life. I had nothing. For the 11 years since then, I've been on and off medication for depression, anxiety. I fought with bulimia for 8 years, and I'm still here. I am still here. Really powerful. I mean, thank you. We are open in what we do, but thank you for sharing that. Um, there's a lot in there, right? To take me back to that time when you were 20 with all of that going on and how you felt. Just give us a sense of what that was like.
It's actually really difficult to hear someone else say it.
Mm.
I found that I'm quite good at talking about it and typing it now, but that made me feel a bit like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not often you see it from the outside in.
No.
Um, yeah, thanks for reading that and sharing that. I was training to be an electrician, so my life was going to be very different. I would have never been wearing a stupid headset like this. We were laughing about it before the call. I sounded like a call center worker because the audio wasn't good enough on the laptop. But my life was meant to be very different. Come from a working class family. My parents split when I was young, and I started working when I was like 13. So I didn't really get any. I didn't get any GCSEs, any A levels, and as a result, when you're from a small town and you've got no qualifications, if you're a young man, you become a tradesman, and it's a great career, and you're going to make good money, and you'll be happy. So I did 2.5 years. Loved it. I played rugby. Small
Mm.
town. I was gonna be born in Hastings and probably die in Hastings, and because there is actually a curse on the town, but I'll tell you later if we have time.
Okay. All right.
Um, and I was playing rugby. My foot stayed in the ground. I was tackled. I was also on the ground, and a spiral fractured my leg and shattered my ankle. And I'd put my foot back in without on the pitch. I was going to lose my foot because there was no pulse. It was just facing the wrong way, like completely broke. And so they pushed it up. They didn't know my leg was broke, so they pushed all the bones up my leg. So I'm lucky I'm not shorter on one side now, but it could have been that way. And multiple operations through that year. I lost my funding for the apprenticeship because I turned 20 and you only get the funding like when you're 19. Or it's something like that. I can't remember the specifics. And so I lost my job. I was in debt. I put on a load of weight. I couldn't see anyone. I lost my sense of identity. And I was put on quite strong antidepressants to deal with this. And
Mm.
it wasn't the right thing for me at the time. And they were really strong and they made me hallucinate. And I was in my wheelchair going out. I saw myself like hanging from trees. I was actually like, oh, like losing the
Wow.
plot. And I just thought, well, what's the point in sticking around? And started making plans. And if it if if it wasn't for my mum, I wouldn't be here now.
Mm.
So I'm eternally grateful. And I wouldn't change any of it because I'm here and it's as we said, our mission to help others not feel that they're so alone and that there's no other option. There's
Mm.
incredible people in our world, and I love this space because there's so many like Alice Hendy who's just developed Ripple to
Mm.
what she went through. Incredible, like incredible humans doing incredible things, and I just want to do my part and use my experience and what I've been through to help others not feel the same. I took the ability to walk and train, and I went too far with it and developed bulimia, and that I had that for about 8 years
Mm.
on and off. And again, the only person I could tell was my mum for the most part because a rugby playing working class guy doesn't have bulimia.
Mm.
You don't have that. It's not something that a man has. And
Mm.
I couldn't share it with anyone. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. And then finally got to university. I was like the wild card entry. They were like, screw it, we'll give this guy a go. Because I traveled the world after, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to get it done. I was like, this is your only shot, Ryan. Like, you don't come from this world. This is not you. You have to perform. I put so much pressure on myself that I thought I was just going to explode. And I developed agoraphobia. And every time I left my flat when I was at uni, I felt like I was going to wet myself. For that was about
Yeah.
2 years. It was quite unpleasant. It strikes now and again weirdly, like that feeling. If I'm on stage now and again, I get it,
Mm.
but I just address it now and I tell everyone I feel like I'm going to piss myself, and everyone's like, ha, 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 and I'm like, no, I'm serious. Now I laugh at the elephant.
Yeah.
I join. I have it sit next to me. I'm like, this is me. This is why I'm so like excitable and stuff like that because of what I've been through. So I'm here because of that,
Mm.
and as a result, I will help 1 billion people in this way because of those things. So yes, it was awful and lots of other things, but I'm still here. So
Yeah.
and now years ago when I started sharing this journey, Rob, three years ago on socials, I said to everyone I'm gonna do a TED talk. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do one. I am gonna do one. I'm gonna do one. And now I'll do one next month, and I'm so excited.
Amazing. So that's TEDx Shoreditch, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What a cool one to do as well.
I
Um,
thought that it's a proper like vibey one, right?
yes, it's a cool one to do. So look, thank you for sharing. I mean, the and important to shout out your mum as well. Those that support us at that darkest time are crucially important. I often talk about a mate of mine called Big Johnny. His nickname was the Answer because he could solve all the problems. But on my darkest night, he tenderly looked after me and made sure I saw my therapist the next day. And you never forget people like that. You never forget the people that sit and talk to you. And so shout out to your mum on that one. I want to touch on the kind of bulimia point because I was bulimic for a while. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, and it was all tied up in my identity as an athlete, fueled by my depression. And kind of as a cyclist, you're a bit obsessed by weight, a bit unhealthily obsessed by weight, because obviously the lighter you are, the faster you go up hills. And I'm kind of quite big framed for a cyclist because I've played basketball and lifted a lot of weights. And again, it didn't sort of get out of control. But I guess if you are making yourself vomit to get rid of food, psychologically, that's not a good place to be, is it?
No, it was calorie restriction for me. I used to count everything.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was, my friend, we laugh about it now, but me and my friends I used to live with, it wasn't funny at the time. I used to just have chicken and broccoli,
Yeah.
just chicken and broccoli. And then I'd drink the water at the end. I'd have like spicy because I'd boil the chicken.
Yeah.
And they would laugh because they're like, chicken water again, is it? And I'm like, yeah, because I was so hungry. And then if I had anything outside of that, then at the weekends, you go for a few drinks on the Friday or the Saturday, and then the Sunday you'd be hungover, and then you go get some crap food. And at the end of that day, it was like binging and purging. That was the cycle for me for years.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I worked in Halifax Bank. That's what I did after my leg break. I was actually like one of the best salesmen in the UK. I could sell stuff to anyone. Just develop relationships, just have fun with
Yeah.
people. And I was trying to talk one day, and my words wouldn't come out. I thought I'm having a stroke or something. I don't know what's going on. And the ladies in the bank, they knew everyone knows each other. It's a small town, right? And they said, "Give your mum a call." Always mum coming to the rescue, but called her, told her then, and then because I hadn't eaten enough and I was losing cognitive ability at that point. And then we went and sat in a cafe, and she was like, "Let's have a slice of cake together and sit here for a while."
Mm.
I don't know if that's the normal way to do it. I wouldn't say that's what therapists would recommend. It's what started me to share. And then we spoke about that fairly openly for a long time. And it came back now and again. It was like, 'cause it was really all the time for a couple of years and then sporadic. And you just get the feeling like you can't do that. You have to like purge yourself kind of. It's almost like you're not worthy. It is that weird
Mm.
athlete place wanting to be in shape. And I struggle with the way I look
Mm.
forever. So I was a big rugby player. That was my identity, but I was never happy. Then I lost loads of weight getting into bodybuilding. I was abbed right up in really good shape, but I was really unhealthy. Then I went the other way and got massive and did like powerlifting. I pulled a double-decker bus on a rope and I was still miserable.
Yeah.
And I was a bouncer when I was at university. I just hated the way I looked, how I
Yeah.
felt. I'm 31 now. It's probably the happiest I've ever been in my own skin.
Yeah.
But it's as a result of going through, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the smallest, I'm not the leanest. But just I'm like, yeah, I am who I am. And if I can't accept that now, then I'm never going to be happy with it.
Yeah, I think there's something about the shame, isn't there, that comes with an eating disorder, and I guess particularly for a man. I'm not diminishing anyone that goes through these challenges, but as you say, if you're a man, we don't see many men, male advocates talking about eating disorders, do we? It's not something that,
I can't remember seeing any.
Yeah.
When I was going through, I was 21, 22 when that started. And I don't remember ever seeing anyone talk about it. I didn't even think I thought it was a thing that was reserved for a small part of a subset of women that were going through that. I don't know, it's perception at the time.
Yeah. Again, important that you share that, and I think there are stigmas within stigmas, aren't there? And I think using your voice to share those challenges is important, and many will identify with. And Yeah, just as I read that, it just struck me that sharing my own experiences back to you is a something for
I
me to be
appreciate. Thank you for
more
sharing.
authentic on it as well. No, it's the right thing to do. Um, we could go on for this. The other thing I noticed on your profile is that concept of being, you know, broken and put back together a few times. Now, I wouldn't say that you were broken. I would say that I wouldn't phrase it that way, but they're your words. So that Japanese metaphor, is it kintsugi? The
Kintsugi.
yeah
Yeah, I
the
love it. It's one of my favorite. I mean, a few people love this metaphor. So in the 16th century, the Japanese tea ceremony was very proper. They move very slowly to pour
yeah
the tea. Everything is very considered and mindful.
mm,
They're in a state of flow when they're making the tea, and that's
yeah
probably why they're enjoying it so much because they're not on screens. But back in the 16th century, they didn't have iPhones anyway. But the shogun of Japan was having a tea ceremony, and one of his servants broke up his favorite piece of china. That's a death. That's a death sentence, right? You
yeah
break the shogun's favorite piece of china. You're getting your head chopped off with a samurai sword.
yeah
But what he said was, "I'll put it back together. Give me a chance." And he put it back together with a glue with gold lacquer in
yeah
it. So then when he presented it back, the broken parts were essentially the pieces that made a piece of art that was completely individual, like nothing else that's ever been. And it was beautiful where it has been repaired and actually stronger. And I kind of think that my plate or my piece of china has been dropped a few times, and I felt broken at the time. I don't feel broken now,
mm.
but as a result, I'm pretty bloody strong and I'm hella sparkly. So
I think anyone that knows you and sees you on social, particularly your toilet break well-being, would say that you are very sparkly, Ryan. So yeah, we can give you that for sure. But I think that we hear a lot now about kind of post-traumatic growth, which is what we're talking about here. But that visualization of something being more beautiful because we've recovered is really important. And the other bit, I think there's still a fear of people disclosing the fact they've had a mental health challenge, a fear of how they'd be perceived. Will I get the promotion? Will I get the job? And Alistair Campbell, who's kind of been at this for a very long time, who I've got to know a little bit, talks about if he received 2 CVs for a job and there was one with a gap that said mental health challenge recovering from, and the rest of the CVs were identical, which one would you hire? And he talks about hiring the individual with the mental health challenge because they've gone through this. They've learned some skills. They've learned about themselves. They've developed empathy. They've developed self-awareness to self-care. And that's kind of what you're talking about with your sparkly, beautiful, kind of put back together, Ryan. That we grow, don't we? We can grow when we can manage.
there's no tougher battle than one you're fighting in your own head. You're your worst critic. No one else
Sure.
gives as much of a crap about you as you do, and that's the truth. It's
Yeah.
the spotlight theory, isn't it? We think we're all the main actor in the performance of what is life, but everyone has actually got the spotlight on themselves and they're concerned with the faux pas they just made.
Yeah.
When you realize that no one actually cares that much about you as you do, it's quite freeing.
Yeah.
And you're like, everyone is running their own thing and everyone has got some degree of challenge and strife in their life and that they get through, or some people struggle much more. But then these are the things that make us stronger and how we learn. I
Yeah.
don't think I wouldn't be the person I am if I didn't go through those things. And other people in our space have been through similar, more challenging regardless. Everyone's been through their own things and that's why they're helping people. So yeah, I agree. I think if I saw it, I'd be like, that takes a lot of confidence to be that honest.
Mm.
And I respect someone that can speak up when they're feeling like that. I don't know if that's going to be the same across the board. That's how I feel, but I feel like we're moving in the direction of travel, the future of well-being, where this is more accepted. And I would rather someone, if they're struggling, in my team here, spoke to me, took some time instead of going bang down the line and then having to take much more time and need real support.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, 100%. So before we get into the future of wellbeing, there's one other question I'd like to kind of pose to you and thing that I'd like to cover. You're prolific on social media. I'm a regular poster myself. I think it's LinkedIn particularly is a very good platform for inspiring people to think differently and trying to facilitate change.
I learned from you, Rob, years ago. You know what I mean?
Well, you've taken whatever I did and then you're running with it at speed. So thank you for saying that. It's very nice. Yeah, sometimes I think we'll look back on these times of posting and social and putting stuff out there and think what were we doing? You know, the other challenge I've got on it is it takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? It saps a lot of energy. We were talking a few weeks ago about some of the hate you get back. I don't get too much hate, but you know, we do get that when we put stuff out on social. It's all for the best intention what we're doing. Uh, how does that sit with you? Because you know, I see the energy you put into it, which is a lot, and I see the impact you're having, which is really positive. But it does come at a personal cost, doesn't it? Where does that sit with you?
It's, I had to ask myself the question really, do I want to be doing this? Do I need to be doing this now? Do I need to be, because I write on the weekends.
Yeah,
So I go to the same seat in the Weatherspoons near me in Putney, and I love it because it's like got like sun coming in by the river. Unlimited coffee for like £2. Who won't like that? So I sit there, put my trance music on because I have to have some music, and I'm
yeah,
like, often I'm writing, I get the stuff done for the week. So it takes time, and I have to do that on the weekend because I do a busy full-time job leading the practice here. But I love it. And then I put stuff out there and I'm completely myself. I'm myself if I'm on a
mm,
date, if I'm with my family, if I'm with you, if I'm at a conference, if I'm at work. I chucked away the mask that I used to own. I only wear masks once a year now, and that's at Halloween. And if people don't like it, then that's their problem, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
am who I am, and I try my best and I try to help people around me. And I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's something I've had to learn and I'm still learning. The difficulty is where I'm completely myself and you are as well, and we're not academic writers, although we use academic theories. We use our lived experience of what we've been through combined with best practice and academia from around the world to develop something that's consumable and understandable.
Yep.
Therefore, there's a lot of you in it. And when it gets like shot at and people are like, oh, this is nonsense. I've had all sorts of haters. Now LinkedIn are sharing it much wider
Yeah.
and the net is bigger. And it's really difficult each time. And I want to say, like, why are you talking to me like that? Other people are like, have you seen that comment in your post? I'm like, yes, I did, but you don't put out a fire by breathing on it. And if
True.
people are like shouting at me with negative comments and saying certain things, that's because they've got an issue, not me.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna get angry. I'm not gonna respond. Trying to like get angry is like holding a hot coal to throw it at someone. You're just gonna burn yourself. So I focus on doing it with consistency, building my
Mm,
network of incredible people on there, responding to people that have something positive to say. Constructive criticism or I don't agree with this, I'm
mm,
cool with that.
yeah.
If I'm chucking stuff out 5 times a week, I'm not going to be right every time. It is not an academic journal, it is a social media platform. And
Yeah.
some people need to remember that, like, well, you can't say this. I'm like, I can say what I like it, don't follow me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as well, I had a really, Tim Ferriss, the
Yeah.
podcaster.
Yeah.
Amazing. He's the OG. Like, I want to be like a Tim Ferriss one day. That's like, you got like Rob Stevenson and Tim Ferriss, like this. You know what I mean? I'm like looking up that way. And he said if you took 1,000 people from the population, a random subset, you're going to have a few people there that have got some real issues,
Mm,
psychosis, other or inherently negative, and some people that just don't want to participate with any positive societal thing. You put that on social media, that's amplified,
yeah.
and they've got a platform to say what they like. So you kind of just have to accept that if you're going to start reaching millions of people now, not everyone is going to like it. That is impossible. If you want to stay safe and stay in your little community where everyone pats you on the back, you can, but you can never get to scale without dealing with some of that. And I'm just learning how to accept it and not let it bother me and just continuing with my mission, as I know 99% of it is positive and people are
Mm,
supportive. And I just that's
yeah.
that's where my head's at with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the price of being successful at the endeavor of trying to inspire that billion people, and there is a price to that. And then how you deal with that price by sticking to the mission, remembering your purpose, and don't engage with kind of negative hatred. Then I think that's the way that you move it forward. But I think it's inevitable if you're successful, right?
Now and again, I want to be like, "What you saying?" Like, give it a go. I'm like, "You never know. I ain't got time for that." Like, but I'm like, "I want
Yeah.
to,"
Yeah.
but I'm like, "No, I'm gonna leave it."
Yeah. Right. Before we get in, I keep saying this, before we get into the future of well-being, I'd ask you to select a piece of music for us. Um,
It's quite energetic, but I
yeah,
guess that
yeah,
tracks.
it's quite energetic. So again, I'm going to put together a playlist from our guests on this series of
Oh, cool.
kind of mood boosting tracks. So you selected "Roped In" by Gorgon City. And I'm a fan of Gorgon City. I've been for a while, so I definitely play some of their music. So I'm just going to play a bit of a segment of this. Just let me know you can hear it, Ryan.
That's the bit of it. That's what I'm writing. I'm like this. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Brilliant. So, yeah, tell me why that was your selection. Why is that a kind of mood boosting track for you?
It speaks to me. I don't know why, like the energy, and if I'm like walking around, and I'm like, yeah, let's go get it. Let's get after today. Or if I'm in the gym, I can listen to that. If I'm relaxing because it's got no lyrics, I listen to that sort of music when I write.
Yeah,
People find it insane. I just need noise, otherwise
yeah,
I can't concentrate. So I've got that sort of music on it. I kind of like just like I'm having a little dance, and I'm actually it's something interesting. I'm going to air it like publicly. Do you watch Lewis Capaldi's documentary?
yeah. I haven't seen it all, but yes, I've seen a bit on it.
See,
Yeah.
he had these tics, and it's due to anxiety. My mum, I was chatting to mum, and when I was younger, I used to blink a lot, and it was years ago, so I didn't really know anything. But that could have been that. And now I've got I've got a really bad back, and that's manifested over the past 3 years. And I can't be doing this all the time. And I'm thinking, is this something to do with that? But I love listening to music and stuff, so I can like move a little bit when I'm sitting
Yeah.
still. I don't. It's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I don't know exactly how, but this just makes me feel more relaxed. And then I move, my body's moving a little bit, and then my mind can engage.
Yeah.
Not quite sure. I'm gonna have to work that one out. I played that
Yeah.
one out openly.
Well,
I'm going to explore that.
yeah. Well, as you know, I've got another project that I
Literally, I
work
have
on,
no
which is
idea.
the the music and mental health. I'm calling it harmonizing the mind now. I've just changed the title.
I
Um,
love that.
but the research on music, it's really strong on how that can improve cognitive ability, your ability to kind of retain information and memory, promote sleep. So what you're doing with that sort of track, it's instrumental, so it's not distracting you, but it's creating a level of energy that's letting you get content out when you're writing. And so your music then provides the platform to focus you and motivate you, which is really interesting. Now for others, that piece of music, they wouldn't be able to think at all because it would be too, they might need some softer classical music. And that's where
I fluctuate. I got like Last Samurai by Hans Zimmer on 1 minute, and then I got like Gorgon City like this track on the next one.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
But I think that's a good one. I kicked off with a track called Dreamer by The Blaze, which I'll send you the link for afterwards on
yeah,
the
please do.
playlist, and yours is number 2 on the playlist. And so as we build this up over time, we'll then start sharing that as a collection of mood boosters. Right. Now, finally, on to the future of well-being. I think before we talk about the future, though, we've got to understand, what does well-being mean to you? And so, kind of how would you define well-being, and what does it mean to you, Ryan?
So the Richard Layard's definition of that question, Rob, that you were in Como for, I love it, and I'm really going back to that a lot now. So it's on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your life? And for me, well-being is that. It's one's satisfaction with their life, which incorporates a whole host of elements and is influenced by every environment in your life. So for me, it's when I feel like I'm in a state where I can thrive,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when
Yeah.
I have positive well-being, and that's contributed to from that's includes my mental health, my physical health, my connections, my social health, my emotional health, all of it. So well-being incorporates all of it, and it's essentially one's ability to thrive.
Yeah. Lee Chambers posted that question on LinkedIn, and there were some interesting answers. But I'd agree with you. Life satisfaction is the catch-all for it, and then there are many different elements that drive that.
Exactly.
But obviously, work being a key determinant, right? Work being a real important element of it.
Love that language. Yeah, this is the change, Rob.
Yeah,
So we
100%.
said, didn't we? We were talking about it, like work-life balance doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If you wait for work-life balance, you know what's going to win. If Rob's my boss, right, and he's like, we need to get something done, how am I going to say, I can't do that, Rob, right now. I'm going for a quick wander in the woods when we got a deadline. I'll
Yes.
give my nana a buzz. It doesn't happen. Like
Yeah.
work wins out every time.
Yeah.
So we need to define what we need to do to be our best selves, to reach our state of positive well-being, understanding that work is one of those drivers. It can be inherently positive or negative depending on how we create the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Work-life balance. So this, because I'm obviously running a tech startup, I get tuned into kind of some of the debate from founders and VCs, and there's a big thing out there around the kind of hustle culture of startups, and the fact that a lot of people say there is no work-life balance if you're running a startup. And they're saying, you've got to pull long hours, weekends, sacrifice holidays, sacrifice relationships. And I fundamentally disagree with this. I agree that in any venture, particularly a startup, which is hard, you've got to work really hard. Um, that's not necessarily a negative because, like we've just been talking about, that work will be your passion, it'll be your meaning, it'll be your purpose. But to perform at your best, you cannot neglect your well-being. That doesn't mean going for an hour's walk in the woods, but it might mean just stepping away from the desk and going outside for 5 minutes and just sitting quietly to recover from the stress that you're experiencing. That'll make you more effective in the afternoon, right? So I think this idea of work-life balance is misconstrued and unhelpful. Work-life integration or life-work integration is probably a better way of describing
Life
it.
work, if we're going to go for it. Totally agree. Actually, talking about social media, one of the posts that people didn't like the most, I said, I was asked by LinkedIn to write something on how to deal with a workaholic, and I did it from my perspective as a workaholic, and everyone said, no, you're not a workaholic. And I was thinking, well, I work a lot. So what is the definition of a workaholic? And everyone questioned me on it. And this was a really good, positive debate, the
Yeah,
one I like.
yeah,
They were like, well, no, because you prioritize the things you need to do each day to be your best self. So that's the differentiator. So you can hustle, don't get me wrong. And I'm hustling at the moment. I'm getting it done because I'm changing the world.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm prioritizing the things that I need every single day first, not second. And there's a set of things I've got in a little tracker because I'm a massive nerd and I check in with myself at the end of each day but I'm like, these things need to happen and I need a little bit, but I need some space to do them. When I do this, I can do everything else. Because if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
Yeah,
RuPaul's great words, right?
yeah, yeah.
Preach. And it's so true.
Yeah, 100%. I call those well-being non-negotiables. What are the things that you tick off each day? What are they?
For me, I'm trying to think. So during the week, I get up 3-6 so I can do it. I know that sounds a little bit militant, but it helps so I can do my morning things.
Yeah,
I do cold every day, as you
yeah,
know. So I meditate when I'm in bed. So I first get up, go make my coffee, get the greens, have that in bed, take a few minutes to meditate. Then I write down 3 things I'm grateful for, and then anything that I feel like I need to write for 10 minutes, just let it go. No
yeah.
purpose, free form, let my thoughts go on paper. Get up, get out, go to the gym. And then, so now I'm either doing workout or 10,000 steps a day, one of the
Mm.
two. I'm morning sunlight as well. So when I'm sitting there meditating, I've got my sad lamp on my bed. So I get some vitamin D. And then I stretch in the evening as well.
Yeah,
So, because for my back and stuff, I need to prioritize that. So once I finish work, I change my glasses.
yeah.
These are my these are my work glasses, my Harry Potters. And I put my evening party glasses on. And then that signifies the end of the workday for me. And then I go
Okay,
and
so
stretch.
there's a ritual of end of the workday changing glasses.
Has to be, otherwise it just bleeds
Yeah, I like that. I like
up until
rituals.
the
I
end.
like that hard boundary. That's good.
But then
And
they're during the week. The
yeah,
weekend I'm letting myself sleep a bit longer.
yeah,
But I still do those things each day,
yeah,
but not necessarily in that order.
yeah. Okay. So again, a commitment, but not massively time consuming.
No?
There's still plenty of hours to for the hustle and the mission and the work, but you're prioritizing things that keep you well.
Probably if I'd add up the times, it's 45 minutes in the gym is the most time intensive thing, but
Yeah,
that's 5 days a week. And then the rest it probably takes 15 minutes,
yeah,
if that.
yeah.
And I
And I
front
think
load that and I do that first thing. And if you're having a cold shower, you don't want to be in there longer. You probably save yourself 5 minutes by not being in the hot shower.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's the misconception. You can prioritize well-being, and still put a lot into whatever your mission or your job is. It's if it's negative stuff that you're putting in that can be the challenge. But look, let's move on because I'm conscious of time. Future of well-being, it's in your job title. This is what the podcast's all about. We've been talking about this a lot in recent weeks. What does the future of well-being look like for you, Ryan?
Yes, it's two separate. The Wellbeing 1.0, the pandemic wellbeing that we all know, was about awareness. It was fixing people when they needed support, catching them as they fall. It was about providing solutions, addressing symptoms, and that was the right thing to do, and that's what we've done. And we've increased awareness, and there's been a bunch of companies and organisations in the UK that have done an incredible job. And now we mostly work in workplaces where we can talk about these things, and it's considered a real thing where it wasn't 10 years ago, right? So you think about
Mm.
that transformation. Wellbeing 2.0 and the future of wellbeing will be quantifiable. So all of the Oxford Institute of Wellbeing's work, the work that we're doing on quantifying the business case for wellbeing is abundantly clear now. It's not up for debate. It's quantifiable, it's measurable. It creates a place where a business can thrive and the individuals can thrive. And who doesn't want that?
Mm.
It's holistic, so it considers more than just one element. So it's great to have a mental health strategy, but it has to be part of something broader. And we have to consider the work, the experiences, the lifestyle, the finance, all of that. It's personalized, so what works for you won't necessarily work for me.
Mm.
And one and done applications, webinars, supports, as good as they can be, need to be personalized for the people. And it is a cross-functional effort at work. So it requires more than just one function. It's just sit with HR historically, and someone's done it side of desk to start, and then as a full-time role, but they're constrained by where that sits. And then most 50% of us in the UK work on laptops, but the IT function isn't a part of any of those conversations. When you configure the tech properly, you can create so much space. If you cut each meeting by 5 minutes and you've got 6 meetings a day, you save 3.5 work weeks per year.
Yeah.
Now that is a ginormous benefit, and it takes 6 seconds to do, but it's something that no one does. And so it needs to be this cross-functional effort sponsored by leadership. It needs to be measured, holistic, and then what we need to do is stop talking about it so much, because it's an outcome, and it's something that we should measure at a business level. And like the incredible Alberto Novis at DHL, the human-centered leadership, they focus on the effects on people rather than just the bottom line, which I love.
Yeah.
And as a result, the business is flourishing. So that's a few like examples, and thinking hopefully that wasn't too abstract and that sort of made sense.
No, it sits very well within kind of the framework that I'm thinking around. I'm just writing an article on the future of well-being, and you've definitely covered a lot of the points there. It's about understanding the link between well-being and performance, and as you say, the work that Deloitte, you guys are doing, and Oxford, and Jan-Emmanuel Deneuve is I think going to really give the data that we need to catalyze change, because as we've seen, well-being is a strong determinant of team performance, of individual performance, but also the data emerging showing that company performance and even stock market performance is linked to the well-being of the people in that organization. And so I think once we've got that bit, you can then start to think, right, let's stop treating well-being as a solution. Let's stop just pushing it side of desk to benefits, HR, health and safety, or wherever else it might start. Let's treat this as a proper determinant of kind of workplace success, alongside profit, as you mentioned. And then I think it's all around, as Jen Fisher talks, is operationalizing well-being, which is some of the stuff you were talking about. So it's not just a benefit, not just a solution. It's thinking about how we're working, and is that conducive to people being well.
So you still have these solutions, and the HR is probably the largest part of the well-being team, but they need support from other parts of the business. And these people and the champions are often doing it side of desk. And how is anyone going to be successful when they're working within one small team? They're going to be constrained by their scope.
Yeah.
So to truly evolve beyond awareness, it needs to be across the entire business. And instead, we should be focusing on autonomy, psychological safety, flexibility, giving people a bit of time and space. Because if you got you can't meditate your way up a 14-hour day.
Yeah.
And so we need to create some space before we consider any of this. And then when you do that, well-being will appear, like I'm saying, like a phoenix out of the organization ashes of the past. And we're like, oh, okay, that's quite nice. And now the business is performing. People are not leaving. People want to join the business because the employee value proposition is really sexy, and people looking on LinkedIn and think, that's where I want to work. It just wins across the board, and it doesn't need to cost the earth. Most of the things that have the biggest impact, or where I've been able to have the biggest impact, haven't cost anything.
Yeah, it just needs commitment, doesn't it? It needs commitment from leadership. And I think and it needs buy-in from leadership. And I think, unfortunately, some leaders will need to see this performance data before giving their buy-in.
Well, if you treasure it, measure it, right?
Yep.
And only 1% of companies using any organizational data at the moment to measure the effectiveness of their well-being efforts. That's a piece of work we did with the Institute of Directors and risk professionals in the UK. So 1% are measuring the effectiveness. Therefore, it's not seen as something that drives business performance. And until that changes, nothing else changes. It's seen as a black hole where we chuck some money, we put on some webinars, we provide a solution. And because that is what best practice says as well. But if you want to elevate and help your people, and actually address the stressors rather than just addressing the symptoms,
Mm.
then we need to start measuring it like we would any other part of the business. You can't go to sales and say, how are you getting on this month? They go, I'm not sure. We're not measuring it really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, address the cause and not the symptoms. So it's back to the discussion we're having about long COVID. You know, the latest thinking is addressing the root cause rather than treating the headaches or the fatigue or the nausea or whatever. And so to do that, we need to be able to measure. And obviously, Form Score is my play on helping organizations do that, with Form Score being the outcome measure of well-being and performance. But the important bit, isn't it, is understanding the drivers that we were discussing, a few, both positive and negative, that would impact individuals, teams, and organizations. Is it belonging? Is it workload? Is it work stress? Is it meetings? You know, and again, like well-being is individual and personalized, it'll be very different for different teams, different parts of an organization, different organizations, right?
100%. There's no panacea for this, like there isn't with any other system or policy or practice. But with this, we seem to want to find one thing that fixes everyone, which inherently misses the point that we're all individuals.
Yeah.
So when we focus on giving people the space, time, flexibility, autonomy, psychological safety, and we say your solutions are over here, use them when you're ready, that's a much better place.
Yeah.
Because you already know that going for a walk is better than sitting on your arse all day. You
Yeah.
just need some time to go and do it if you want to.
Time and permission. Yeah. Time and permission.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's the biggest gift that we can give someone is like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you've got no time in the day, there's no solution or support that is going to be a better benefit than giving people a little bit of time to step away.
Yeah. Or even just to actually think and work in a so free thinking space. You know, meetings is a big one, isn't it? You know,
so we want to do some amazing things right together, don't we?
Yeah.
So we need time to think. But if we're head down, grinding out widgets, right, we are not going to have any opportunity to think about the questions of tomorrow and answer the challenges that are coming. And we'll continue to develop what is happening today. But the pace of change, ChatGPT, everything else, as everyone knows, is rapid.
Yeah.
So we need to have head down time and head up time, and we need to prioritize time for head up time together.
Yeah, and perhaps we don't, and organizations don't prioritize that head up time enough.
Definitely. I'm guilty of it as much as anyone. I put focus time in my diary, and it's kind of like a running joke in my team that so my calendar's open. If they see focus time, that's time we can use to put a time in with Ryan. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, I know I was free, but I'm not really.
Maybe you should change that to kind of meeting with CEO or something like that.
I definitely should. Yeah, Rob Stevenson and Ryan time. We'll just like sit on a call with one another, so no one can bother us.
That's it, my friend. So look, we've got some ideas of what the future of wellbeing will look like. What do you think needs to happen for us to realize that future?
So there's a few things. You need more incredible leaders speaking up about the power of it and then how they've done things in organizations, because people like case studies and data. C-suite have got a gazillion priorities going on, right? You are just one of 75 things the C-suite have to deal with. If you're not coming with a business case that is clear for investment and how you're going to improve the business, it's not going to be at the top of the pile.
Yeah.
So we need to get clear on that, and then we need to give them the platform, like the Albertos of the world, to go forwards and tell these stories, and then to come to places like the World Happiness Summit, which was excellent, by the way. And if anyone ever gets the chance, I would recommend to go. So we give them the platform. We keep sharing those good news stories, and when people see that X company has seen Y increase in performance as a result of Z, they're going to want a piece of that pie. The second part is we have to measure it. If you don't measure it, what gets measured gets incentivized, gets improved. And until we do that, it will remain exactly the same, and we'll put on solutions and keep doing the same thing we're doing.
Yeah,
I think they're the big two enablers for everything.
Yeah, and we and we should probably be embedding that measurement into the performance reviews of leaders, right? So leaders should
100%.
be assessed on how well their direct reports, their teams are doing on well-being, and so to be able to be assessed, they need to be measuring that.
It's going to take a big mindset shift, and it's not going to happen quickly.
No.
When times are tight, inflation was up near 10%. Money is no longer free to print, and therefore we're focused on the bottom line and surviving. We've seen it with the redundancies. It's all like some of the world's best offices and workplaces that offered all those incredible benefits have just let thousands of people go, and it's sad. And these people are going to be really struggling. But it's going to take an entire leadership paradigm shift to understand that when we focus on these people, we'll see a multiple fold return on investment.
Yeah.
But there are some organizations that are doing it, and I think more will copy and follow suit as we begin to see that study across the S&P, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq show that organizations that prioritize well-being outperform those that don't.
Yeah.
That coupled with all the other work that's happening with the World Wellbeing Movement, Sarah Cunningham and team, what you're doing will hopefully bring this together for global organizations to make change, because it needs to happen at that level. You need to keep having individuals doing amazing things. It needs to happen top down, and then what we'll end up with is organizations that prioritize at both levels.
Yeah, love that image, and it's I'm proud to be part of the village of people that you mentioned making that happen. So just a few quick fire questions. Tell us something exciting you're working on, please.
Oh, screw it, I'll tell you, I'm writing a book. It's gonna be released. I can't keep it. I'm so excited. It's gonna be released Jan 24. 52 weeks of wellbeing and no nonsense guide to fulfilling work life.
Amazing.
And it's like I googled it like yesterday, and it's in America and stuff, like for pre-sale, and it's like, oh my god, they're so excited.
Brilliant. Well, you've heard it here first. Ryan's new book will be out in the new year. We'll put the links to the pre-orders in the show notes. Your top tip for professionals working in the workplace who are looking to improve workplace well-being?
Consider your digital boundaries. Put them in place, because if you don't, someone else is going to write them, and it's not going to be where you want it. I think we'll just go back to what Rob and I said earlier. If you can mute notifications, you don't need it to pop up on your work phone as a banner in the bottom right of your screen. You just don't need that stress, and those noises will trigger anxiety every time. Mute it if you can. Check the emails when it suits you, and try and get into focus work.
Yeah, very good. I think you've answered this, but if the future of well-being were an animal, what would it be for you?
An animal? I'm going to say a hippo, because it's coming through whether you want it or not. and then when it's building up some steam, and you just don't stop a hippo.
I love it. I love it. I've just got this image of the big hippo yawn. If the future of well-being were a color, what color springs to mind?
Orange.
Why
Because
orange?
the future's bright. It's hella energetic, and we're gonna create workplaces where people can thrive. And for me, thriving is the color orange.
Yeah, you've got a sunrise going on there as well.
Exactly, mate. Yeah, it's bringing energy, and what it's doing is letting people provide their energy and live with purpose. And when we see that, like what you're doing, what I'm doing, it just goes out, doesn't it? And you can feel it.
Yeah.
And I want to do that for more people.
Right. I love it. If future well-being were food, what would it be?
Blimey, that's a good one. I had a really good curry at the weekend, so I'm going to go with Rogan Josh. Yeah, it's pretty spicy. It's a bit different.
Yeah,
but it's something that's enjoyed by everyone.
Yeah, like it's universal.
Yeah,
there's a lot of elements that go into making a good curry as well.
No, that's it. You're building on the picture of the curry. That's it.
And final one: if a future of well-being were a place, what place would that be?
Como.
Lake Como.
It's where the Wellbeing Manifesto started. I think it's a place that is deep in history, and there's a lot that's gone into it, but it's a place of progression and change.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place to be having these sort of discussions, particularly in the lake with you, sir. Lake Como is a great place. And then finally, your recommended read, listen, and watch, please.
Number one book that started my journey to self-development and off of antidepressants and anxiety medication was A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Okay, yeah.
Incredible book.
Yeah.
Truly incredible. That's like a life-changing book for me. What would you ever to listen? What podcasts? Love the Tim Ferriss show.
Yeah.
Love that. And I said Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and I think that's cracking as well. He does some really cool stuff. What was the other one?
Watch.
The Lewis Capaldi documentary. I would 100% recommend. He is really, really authentic. He's going through quite a lot of stuff, and he airs that really openly, and it's quite inspiring to see. And it made me quite teary to see him choke up on the stage, and I'd never seen a vulnerable, almost like a meltdown or a point that everything came to in front of everyone. I can't imagine being that vulnerable and raw and open in front of so many people, and I can imagine to come back from that, it must have been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, he spoke about the fact that he hates the whole process, the whole music industry, but just the joy of performing on stage is what drives him forward. And I can relate to that. I don't perform in front of crowds that big for sure, but there's nothing like being up on stage, whether you're speaking
Oh,
or
it's the
performing.
best. When you get over the fact that you feel like you're going to piss yourself, it's the best thing ever.
Well, on that note, Mr. Hopkins, I'd just like to say thank you. It's the first podcast recording I've done as an interviewer for a while, and I forgot how much I enjoy doing this, enjoy learning, from you. And again, it's a very mindful experience because you're focused, very much on what we're talking about. So my form score has definitely been boosted to an 8. So I thank you for that.
I think I'm going to say the same. I'm definitely feeling more energized than when I came in. I appreciate you having me on this and everything you've done over the years. I think you're one of the OGs in the UK. So I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate everything that you do still.
Thank you. It's really good of you to say. So have a great day. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening and watching this. This is The Future of Wellbeing with me, Rob Stevenson, and Ryan Hopkins. Thank you so much.
Thanks, team.